All of them, because that would be so many 8-man and 10-man tag team matches that I would lose my mind. What stuck out to you? But we'll just do this. What stuck out to you on night one?
Well, I'll say that two things. So there's in terms of non-tournament stuff. The things that stuck out to me were obviously the tag title change. War Machine beat the Guerrillas of Destiny to win the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles back. They just lost it, I think, at Dominion, right? Is that the last figure? So they kind of traded it back and forth. So it was interesting that they did a title change at one of these shows. I think that makes sense to do. It's the first shows in America. So I think they had a decent match. It was a brawl. So they. No DQ match. So I thought that was good. So that stuck out to me. And the other non-tournament thing, obviously, was the main event of the first night was Okada versus Cody. Only for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. ROH Championship was not on the line. The match itself was a good match, as you would expect with those guys. The things, I guess, about it were the teased dissension of Cody with Omega and the Bullet Club. And just the fact that, and I don't want to go off and get angry about things, but I don't really... Cody just won the ROH title 8 days before this show. This was the night one, so it was Saturday night last weekend. I don't think that's a good thing to do, is have a guy who just won the ROH World Championship lose cleanly literally a week into his title reign against the IWGP champion. If you're going to do champion versus champion, it should be built up, I think, for a very long time, put on a very important and widely watched show, and there needs to be something, they should have been either title versus title or something like that to make it seem really important. I think to have a title versus title match on this type of show with very little build after Cody just became the champion is a bit of a throwaway. Not something that I would have done. I would not have had Cody lose the match cleanly. I think that kind of weakens him and that championship, the Ring of Honor championship, which needs, I think, to be kind of built back up to what it was only maybe a year or two ago and before that. So that was a little bit disappointing for me as far as the night one stuff that stood out non-tournament was.
I agree with you. What I was reading was that this match was booked this way before the decision was made to have Cody win the Ring of Honor world title. Now, that is the kind of drawback when you have these guys not under exclusive contracts wrestling for different promotions. Some will live and some will die, figuratively speaking. I don't think it was the right time. I was rooting for Cody because I'm kind of a mark for Cody Rhodes, but if you're not going to put it on Omega, I don't think you put it on Cody. And Okada, when Okada loses, it means something. It means a lot. Or should I say when he loses the title? So they kind of booked themselves into a corner. Now, going forward, what's the next step for the Ring of Honor world title? I don't know. Are they going to pretend like the match with Okada never happened? I guess we'll see. I thought it was a good match, but I've said this before, and I think you and I have talked about it. Cody's just not. He's the level below, which it's not a knock on him. It's not a bad thing, but there's obviously something that separates him from being on the level of guys like Okada, Omega. I'd even put Naito up there, Tanahashi in New Japan ranks, and I can't put my finger on what it is. His style is still a little too WWE for my liking. He doesn't have really his own identity in the ring. He does like the drop down uppercut that Goldust does, and he does like the drop down kick that Ricochet does, and his finisher is still pretty weak to me. He just doesn't. The match was good. It was probably his best match outside. Actually, his best match I think I've ever seen. And they got the time to do so. They got about a half an hour, and that's what Okada does. Though he gets great matches out of every single person that he works with. So, Okada kept the title, and like you said, there was some dissension between Cody and Omega, talking about throwing in the towel and stuff like that, as I harken back to Okada and Omega. So, but now as far as the tournament matches go, Jay Lethal and Hangman Page, they did not have a very good match, and I think it was marred by a very obvious Jay Lethal botch of the lethal injection.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. I mean, of the four matches that were on the first night, Lethal and Page was kind of whatever. It was an okay match. It was probably the weakest of the four for sure. Sabre and Juice Robinson, I thought, had a pretty entertaining match. It was about 10 minutes long. Crowd was definitely super into it. So obviously Lethal advanced in the first one, and Zack Sabre advanced in that match. Ishii and Naito had a long match, 15-16 minutes, probably what you'd expect from those two guys. They've worked together several times before. Ishii won that match in a little bit of a surprise, I think. And then Omega beat Michael Elgin in about 22 and a half minutes. Again, those guys have had matches before. I think there was a little bit of a backstory where Omega had issues or trouble beating Elgin in the past, but he was able to win this match, and that match was also very good. So I think 3 of the 4 matches were highly entertaining as far as the first round goes. And you had Omega, Ishii, Sabre, and Lethal advancing to night 2.
Yeah, I agreed with everything you said. And kudos to Juice Robinson, because that guy, he was toiling in obscurity in NXT as CJ Parker, who you once...
Baywatch, bro.
Baywatch, yeah. You actually told me that was a Baywatch name, and sure enough it was.
True. Pam Anderson.
Classic. Good old Pammy A. Or as I called her, Mrs. Shawn Michaels for a little while.
There you go.
Good for him. So for him to be able to kind of reinvent himself in Japan and get over the way he has is really good. You know, it's really good to see. Big fan of him. All right, so night 2, stuff that was not tournament matches. No, I think the most out of everything on this show, we didn't talk about.
I'm not talking about
the one
Billy Gunn. No,
the badass.
I'm not. Nope.
One half the New Age Outlaws. No, if I have to hear how much bigger Billy Gunn is than everybody ever again, I'm going to blow my brains out.
Oh, you know what? Actually, as we move into night 2, the one thing because when we talked about what we both thought of the show, because we watched the shows individually and then we convened and talked about what we thought of them. So the commentary on these nights was done by Jim Ross and Josh Barnett. The shows were aired on Access TV. Saturday night, actually, it was aired live on Access TV. Sunday night, it was on New Japan World, and then it'll be shown on Access TV tomorrow night on Friday. There was a lot of holes in the commentary. JR and Barnett were making some mistakes. They showed a little bit of a lack of familiarity with certain wrestlers, which is a little surprising, I know, because they do the Access TV show on a weekly basis.
They do the show every week, for God's sake.
So it was a little disappointing. Obviously, I'm a big fan of JR, but it was a little bit disappointing, some of the things that they were doing, some of the mistakes they were making, mixing up the Briscoes and not knowing who Evil and Bushi was, like stuff like that was kind of a little bit Bush.
Marty effing Sherrill.
Yeah,
Sherrill. And I gave JR a pass on it like 2 or 3 times because of his deep accent, but no, he said Skrull once, and then it was Sherrill, and then you got Josh Barnett just pancaking on whatever JR said, and then you got Josh Barnett with his completely, no accent, nothing, saying Marty Sherrill. Shut up! I was so mad at that. And I'm a fan of Josh Barnett in the UFC and in Pride. I watch Josh Barnett, but there's no excuse for making the mistakes that he's making because these guys do this show every single week. You're not going to go through like a run sheet beforehand to make sure you got the names right? And if New Japan, if they're bringing Barnett and Jim Ross to give the product some legitimacy, you should have brought in Don Callis and Kevin Kelly, who kill it every single week. And they know who the Bushi is, and they know what their moves are, and it just makes me. And if Josh Barnett calls an insecurity a step over toe kick one more time, I'm gonna step over toe kick his nuts, Joe. I was so sick and tired of hearing like the mistakes on the commentary. I understand it's a 4-hour show, and I'm even giving JR a little bit of a pass here. Giving JR a pass because he's had a rough go of it lately. The guy's under contract to do the Mae Young Classic now. Now I'm worried. I'm worried about the Mae Young Classic.
Do you think Lita will be better than Josh Barnett?
No, they're going to both suck, Joe. That's going to be a terrible commentary.
I feel like we're going into violent territory.
JR's going to think he's watching Leilani Kai wrestle.
He's going to be having Dean Ambrose stab somebody again.
Listen,
I can't be dealing with that.
I might have to go there. Evil does bring out a sickle. But yeah, man, that commentary was rough. Even rougher for you was the intermission. I know you're a big fan of that.
Oh, my goodness. Intermission on a live wrestling show. That's what I need to see, is guys sitting around for 15 minutes, fans walking around in the arena.
Was there an intermission on day 2?
Yeah, I think there was, because as I was watching it on day 2, so on the night 2, I didn't watch every single match. I watched all the tournament ones. I watched the Young Bucks matches, a couple matches that I skipped, some of the tag matches. And as I was zipping through, I was watching it on my computer, I got to a point where I was kind of skipping ahead, and there was a point where right in the middle of it, it was just the ring sitting there, people walking around for like 15 minutes. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, guys. 4.5-hour show, we had a 15-20 minute intermission, and it's on live TV.
I hear you.
Improve on that.
I completely understand. I mean, what they could have done to me was have the intermission almost in the beginning, because they to their credit, on night one they got right into the matches. But if you want to familiarize the North American public with what's going on, do it from the jump, and then if you want to do the intermission for the live crowd, that's fine. One of your 347 825 man tag matches you could have played during the intermission for the live crowd. It's not SummerSlam 91 anymore.
No,
okay?
You're right.
God, I love SummerSlam 91.
So I guess as far as non-tournament stuff on night 2, the Young Bucks beat Roppongi Vice for the IWGP, or to retain the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship. They had a good match. These guys wrestled for many times together. They got over 20 minutes. The big story, I think, at the end was that Rocky Romero and Beretta split up as a team amicably. There was no turn or anything like that. I think Rocky just said that Beretta was going to go on into the heavyweight division.
He had said, sorry to interrupt, he had said before the match he promised Beretta if they didn't win the titles, he would let Beretta go his own way. He doesn't want to hold him back anymore, he said.
Right. So they did that. That split after the match. And then out of nowhere, Ricochet appeared and I guess returned to New Japan Wrestling and challenged the Young Bucks to a tag match with him and his trainer at some point in the future. So that seems to be the next feud for the Young Bucks, and Roppongi Vice split up. They had a good match. These guys wrestled several times before. It'll be the last time that it happens, most likely, unless for some reason Roppongi Vice gets back together. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I like this match. It was a long match. Speaking of the commentary, there was a triple jump somersault Meltzer driver to the floor. If you could wrap your head around that, go look online. There's GIFs everywhere. That Nick and Matt Jackson did, and the pathetic undersell by Josh Barnett, you would have thought it was a scoop slam, and then he buries like the connecting part of the move. He's like, he didn't really get all of it. For God's sake, the man just jumped from like the moon to hit the Meltzer driver, and you're not like, there was no, I don't know if he became so used to the spots that like but any kind of, from Michael Cole to JB to, I don't care who you are, even Byron Saxton, they're going to pop for the move. And I think in order to get talent over, you have to do that. You can't just be like, here's a move. It's like you got to sell the move. Now that I'm off my soapbox, I think it was a really good match, and Roppongi Vice splitting up. I think Trent Beretta will do a lot of good things in the heavyweight division. He's a big dude. He's not small, and I don't know if Rocky's going to retire. He kind of alluded to that. He's not a spring chicken, despite JR putting him over like he was one. So who knows what the future holds for Trent Beretta, but I'm sure they'll do right by him in New Japan.
Outside of that, there wasn't really too much else I thought newsworthy as far as non-tournament stuff. I know Tanahashi beat Billy Gunn. I don't know how. I boycotted that match, but Tanahashi retained the title. The tournament matches at the semifinals and the finals. So it was Kenny Omega versus Jay Lethal in the semis, and Ishii versus Zack Sabre Jr. in the other semifinal match. Both matches got not a ton of time. Looks like Omega's match with Lethal was about 13 minutes, and Ishii's and Sabre was just under 12. There was the second and third matches on the card that night. Again, both matches solid. I thought that the Ishii-Sabre match was the better of the two, I would say, if I was having to make a choice on that. But both matches were fine. Omega and Ishii both advanced to the finals. Yep,
I agree with you on these. And Jay Lethal, I don't know, man. He's, I think what you said before off air, Jay Lethal as a face is just not really cutting the mustard. He seems like another just generic guy out there. He doesn't really have much of a direction, much of a gimmick, and his matches have been underwhelming. Him and Omega put on a decent match, but out of the two, the Ishii versus Sabre match was a lot better.
Yes, I'm with you on that. So that led to the finals.
Tanahashi versus Billy Gunn, you missed that.
Yep, I blew right by that. So it's Kenny Omega versus Tomohiro Ishii in the finals of the U.S. Championship Tournament. Main event of the show, and they gave this one a lot of time, so they had over a half an hour. Listen, it's I don't know how to describe it really. If you watch New Japan or if you've seen matches with these guys before, it's what you would expect from them. It's a lot of Ishii's a very strong style guy, right, with a lot of his moves, and he's very stiff in the ring. And Omega's got his moveset, so you've seen like a lot of that stuff before. But They gave them a lot of time. They went over 30 minutes. It was a very good match.